regardless of where you're at in any other regard to spiritual progress, it's very important to always come back to this basic understanding or this basic awareness that if you feel somehow blocked, if you feel somehow tied to something, if you feel somehow held back from living your life fully, if you're somehow held back from feeling happy and feeling blissful, then it's always because of a misaligned belief. It's always because of a limiting belief. Now, if you were to only practice this, then that pretty much be it. That's pretty much all that you need in a way, because I have never found a distorted state within myself that was not caused by some kind of an unconscious belief that my higher self disagreed with. So while we can apply all these other tools for how to live and all that stuff, really the most important thing is to be in alignment, because then that alignment will teach you how to live. It will teach you all these other tools. So this is very crucial, and that's why I keep returning to it every once in a while and dedicate a session to it. So first of all, what's important to understand is that you need to desire to shift your awareness more and more frequently from the physical level of your life to that sort of having taken one step back within yourself and being aware of that more non-physical state within yourself where these ideas originate, where they enter your awareness, so to speak. So beliefs can be seen as susceptibilities in a way. You are susceptible, you are vulnerable to believing in certain things because of how you are conditioned, because of the friends around you, because of the world that you grew up in, because of the things that you know, versus the 99.99999% of existence that you don't know and therefore have no context for, and therefore your understanding and beliefs and susceptibilities are not formed by the things you don't know. So you're always sensitive and vulnerable and susceptible to believing in the things that are somehow originating from a combination of things that you know, that you grew up with, that you were told, etc. So to have that awareness of the fact that whenever you feel a distortion within yourself, which most people call contracted, like I feel contracted, I feel bad. When you feel bad, when you feel contracted, it's very tempting to automatically appoint a cause for this contraction outside yourself. It's very easy. Excuse me. So it's very crucial for us as adepts to be having an awareness that's internalized in a way that is subtler, that's resting in a subtler level than just like the blatant obliviousness of pointing out causes in physical reality and thinking as everyone else does. That's the easy way to go about life, but it will not actually make life easier on you, because you'll be appointing causes from the wrong angles, from the wrong understanding. So try shifting your sense of awareness to that subtler, more internalized level of yourself where you're actually aware of how you feel. And the question that you ask yourself is not so much what is causing the way I feel and how can I fix it. The question is, everything outside myself is a reflection of who I am and what I believe. Thus then, why do I feel the way I feel, or rather what must I believe is true in order to feel this way? So if your awareness shifts from what is causing me to feel this way to what must I believe is true, or what must I be defining in a negative way, in a way that's not as holistic, that's not as abundant, that's not as complete in its perspective, in its wisdom, as my higher self sees this same occurrence, this same neutral scenario, because everything is inherently, essentially neutral. We are constantly shaping it and texturizing it with our beliefs, with our definitions, and therefore we only ever experience life never as it is, but only as we say it is. That's why I always say, it is whatever you say it is, 24/7. So it's very important to understand that however we define something determines not only how we feel, but it also activates the law of attraction in line with that frequency of our definition, being in or out of alignment with who we are. So for example, there can be a completely neutral experience here, which every experience essentially is, I just see a set of colors and shapes, and I call that a person calling me out on something negative, for example. Now, my sense of unworthiness, my susceptibility, my belief in, oh, I am unworthy, might start to kick in because someone's calling me out on something. They're giving me negative feedback. And so this essentially neutral set of data, colors, shapes, sound vibrations, I interpret as you don't like me, or I am not loved by you, or you are rejecting me. This is just one example, but you can apply this all across the board in your life. So now I have turned this essentially neutral painting of life, this appearance within my awareness. But because my definition is out of alignment with the way my higher self sees that scenario, I will start to feel contracted. I will start to feel bad. Not because I'm actually rejected, but because I believe I am while I am not. I feel bad not because I am actually unloved. It's because I believe I'm not loved while I'm actually not. You see, so you have to shift your awareness from the externalization of your feelings to the internalization of your feelings. And always have that awareness whenever you feel contracted, whenever you start to feel bad, or whenever you start to feel overly responsible for things or tied down. You're not seeing something clearly. You're not seeing the solution. You're not seeing the true point of view. You're not seeing the higher definition that's available to you. If you did not have higher definitions available to you, you would not be made to feel bad. So even when we feel blissful, that is still not the highest definition at all, but that is for where we're at, the most relevant in alignment definition, and therefore we are made to feel really good, because higher self is not cruel. It will not make us feel bad just because we don't have the absolute truth available to us. But as soon as we take it up a step and we define something in a way that is somewhat closer in alignment to the way things actually are from a non-physical eternal being's point of view, we will start to feel really, really good real fast. Because we take ownership of ourselves and we remember that we are the definer of how we feel. We are the chooser of our feeling state. And through defining this essentially neutral scenario in the way that I want to feel because of the way I define it, I am now also activating the law of attraction in a way that is working in my and everyone's benefit. Because law of attraction is not activated by what is happening. It is activated by how I choose to define what's happening. So if I choose to define what's happening as positive, even if everyone around me would say like, oh, that's terrible, I'm so sorry for you. But I'm like, no, this is great. Then the response that I will get out of that, the feeling state I'll get out of that is good, is aligning, is connecting. It will increase my wisdom, my perspective of the whole situation. It will increase my sense of love and my sense of expansion. And simultaneously, that definition, that positive in alignment definition, will activate the law of attraction in such a way that the seemingly nasty scenario will actually resolve itself that much quicker, and is actively making room for something that's more reflective of a smooth and harmonious relationship to my worldly experience. So be very careful when you blame your outside circumstances, because you're only further activating that law of attraction in a negative way that will work against you, and that will make you feel more and more oppressed or held back by your circumstances. But the most important thing to take away from this is that your feeling state is always up to you, that how aligned and how connected you are to your true self is always up to you. Now, I'm going to tie in to my talk this first question because I think it's a good question. Limiting beliefs. The talk you gave, you can't win from a belief. Look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It's a little old, but it still works and the content is good, if I say so myself. The talk you gave, You Can't Win from a Belief, posted exactly 2 years ago, was pivotal for me and many others. If you were giving that talk again today, would it differ in any way? Did you say it all then, or is there more now? Actually, I'm not 100% sure about everything that I shared back then. I mean, I don't remember exactly what I shared, and I haven't watched that video in a long time. But, no, the same thing, the same principle still applies, and I'll recapture it here because I think it's very transformative if people get this. So this is just a technique, okay? This is not the truth. And that's also what I tried to tell in that video, if I'm not mistaken. So don't take this on as a truth, but take this on as a tool to get to the truth. So the tool is that you admit defeat to your limiting beliefs. In other words, if your belief system suggests that you are unworthy, you agree with it. instead of try to disagree with it. So, of course, again, this is not the truth. It's not true that you're unlovable. It's not true that you're unworthy. But by actually admitting defeat to the belief that suggests I am unworthy, relaxation can kick in and transformation can begin, because you're empowering yourself. You're acknowledging that you have these beliefs. You're acknowledging that you're playing life within a certain playing field, within a certain range of dimensionality, within a certain range of perspective and vibrations. And that within that range, you can never win the game. It's like playing chess. You can't beat the game, or you can't transcend the rules by trying to beat the game by its own rules. If you're playing chess by the rules of chess, you cannot make a move that's not allowed by the rules of chess. But this is what we so often try with our belief system. So we might have a negative belief, such as I am unworthy. This might be from our childhood. This might be a core belief. I am unworthy. I'm not good enough. I need to prove myself to other people all the time. I need to overcompensate for who I am. I need to make sure that I'm perfect in every way in order for me to be okay and lovable and given permission to exist by my daddy and my mommy and by God, by my friends and society. I need to work really hard, or I need to seek approval. So if that is the game with those parameters and rules within that frequency domain that you are consistently used to playing, you're conditioned to playing in that way, you're used to overcompensating because you believe you're unworthy on some level, you're not good enough, you're not acceptable as you are, then you are fighting the game, and you're trying to step out of the game by playing the rules of the game, by playing with the chess pieces of that game. But you can never win from a belief within its own frequency domain. So you got to first admit defeat. Just let the other person win. Let whoever you're playing chess with win. Let your circumstances win. Let all these other people that don't love you according to you, let them win. Let them not love you. So you admit to yourself that you are unlovable. You are a piece of shit. You are unworthy. You're absolutely unworthy. And see how it's actually true from that belief's point of view, which is of course limiting. That's why it's not the truth. It's only a tool to get to a greater truth. But see that it's relatively true from that point of view, that you are not good enough. Why? Because you cried too much as a kid, because you had too much problems and your parents were too annoyed with you, or whatever it is. So see that, yes, from that relative point of view, from that belief, I am unworthy. I am not good enough. That's so good to know. I am totally unworthy from that point of view. And I can never win from that point of view by fighting that point of view, by trying to compensate for that point of view. So let it win. Who cares? As soon as you stop caring whether you win from your beliefs or not, you have completely won. Because you can actually now step away from the game. Whereas if you're still playing, you're still playing. So stop playing within that frequency domain by actually allowing yourself to feel and acknowledge to your beliefs that they can win. Tell your beliefs, yes, you're right. You're right. I am unworthy. I am ungood enough. I am annoying. People don't like me a lot of the time. And that's okay. So as soon as you start to find this okayness with admitting defeat to your beliefs, now you're free to choose other beliefs. But if you're still trying to fight with your beliefs and compensate in your physical circumstances and in your relationships to try to prove that that belief is not true, you're still completely believing that belief. The only way to not believe in that belief is by allowing that belief to be the belief and sort of saying like, thank you for your lessons. I no longer need you. You're absolutely right. I'm a piece of shit. But I don't care. I don't give a shit about being a piece of shit. So now I can actually breathe again. I can be aligned again. Because I admitted defeat, now I can step away from that game and enter the next frequency realm of what is possible for me in terms of beliefs and understandings and perspectives. So, like a real warrior doesn't fight. A real warrior in this sense, like a real spiritual warrior, that's kind of also my post about, my controversial post about the feminine. Like as long as we continue to fight with beliefs, we're still believing in those beliefs. And we're perpetuating what we say we don't want, what we say we're fighting against. But if you're fighting against it, you still believe it to be real. And you still reinforce that reality, and you will still continue to use the law of attraction, which is a law of the universe. You cannot escape this one. You can escape the other chess games, but not this one. And so you will continue through your negative definitions of, oh, the other oppresses me, or the other doesn't like me, or I am unworthy because they don't approve of me. Let me try even harder to be funny. You will never win in that way, and you will only continue to perpetuate, to activate the law of attraction in a way that is counterproductive to what you actually desire to be in this life. So a real warrior admits defeat and feels okay with that. In fact, they feel empowered by it. If you can admit defeat and feel empowered by that, then you're really becoming transcendent in your understanding of who you are. You really stop fighting from this ego effect based separate point of view, and you start understanding that all of life is who you are, and that nothing can harm you and nothing can hurt you and nothing can threaten you, because there's only one in the entirety of existence. How can one hurt itself? It can't, except if it believes it can, and then it creates the illusory experience that it does. But that is up to you as a free agent of creation. But you can also say, hey, I'm tired of fighting this belief within its own realm, so let me just admit defeat. You can win. You've run me for the past 30 years. You have believed I'm unworthy, and you've tried to protect me from being confirmed that I'm unworthy, because I'm so afraid that this belief is true. And I'm so afraid that whenever people say that I'm unworthy, that it's actually more reinforced that I'm actually unworthy, and then really my options start to slim down significantly in life. So let me try whatever I can to squeeze in at least 2 compliments a day. You know, that's no way to live. That's all still within the realm of believing in the beliefs you don't want to believe in anymore. So the best way to do it is to just admit defeat. Sometimes there's other ways too. Just transform the belief and see that it's not true. But sometimes actually the most productive way is to see that they are true. You are unworthy and you are annoying as fuck. So when you realize that you are annoying as fuck from that point of view, from that belief's perspective, and that belief is trying everything it can, that the ego effect, the substitute servant, that's trying to take care of you on your vibrational behalf because you haven't learned how to consciously, which is what we call the ego generally. That ego effect, it's just an effect. It doesn't exist. It's just an effect. Put rain and sunshine together and you get a rainbow effect. The rainbow doesn't exist. It's an effect. Ego doesn't exist without your not taking responsibility for your vibration. It only exists as an effect of the ingredient of you not taking vibrational control of yourself while still being alive. Therefore, something else needs to effectuate itself and take care of you for you. And so the ego effect will continue to run your consciousness, your life, and the law of attraction for you, innocently so, because it's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you from being proven wrong, being proven inadequate, being proven unworthy. So it's working on your behalf. But as soon as you admit defeat, you basically take back control of your true frequency. And in that sense, you're letting your substitute servant or your ego effect know that you've got this chunk of your overall subconscious you have now taken back and integrated, and it's now yours to control. And the ego effect can sort of loosen its grip a little bit on that area, that aspect of your life. This is also why people keep creating experiences in their lives that they say they don't want. And then when I talk about law of attraction, they will say, how can this be true? Because I keep attracting things I do not want. I keep attracting the opposite of what I say I want. It's because you haven't taken full vibrational control yet, and you're still playing within the realm of compensating for limiting beliefs that you haven't investigated fully or uprooted yet. So, how to investigate limiting beliefs and uproot them? Awareness, obviously, of how you feel. And how you feel if you make your awareness more subtle. Does this make sense, everyone, when I say this? Well, you can't reply right here, but I'll assume that it doesn't make sense to all of you. So there is the grosser level. There is the denser level of life, right? Such as the physical. Now, everyone with a brain can recognize that this is an object. This is a phone. It doesn't take a lot of subtlety. It doesn't take a lot of refined awareness. It doesn't take a lot of sensitivity to notice that this is an object, seemingly within space and time. However, if I would tell you that this phone communicates with an antenna 2 miles from here, that would be slightly subtler. That would be harder to perceive for you. It would be harder to believe and understand and grok and get a sense of, because it's not as visible, it's not as gross, it's not as obvious, it's not as dense, it's not as physical, right? So it's not as obvious. So in that way, you need a subtler awareness. You need a more stillness of self. You need to be able to maintain the absence of self, the stillness of the individual self, the ego effect, for a second at least. You need to be able to maintain silence of self in order to gather more subtle awareness of what's happening, what's going on, what's true within yourself. And then maybe you can start to actually expand your awareness and understand that this phone electromagnetically communicates with all kinds of things while you have no knowledge of it visibly or physically. Just one example of subtle versus gross reality or experience. So we need to develop a subtler awareness within ourselves if we want to investigate those deeper unconscious beliefs. So to get into the unconscious mind and integrate those beliefs, the best way to do this is not to just go digging for it all the time, although sometimes to have a session where you actually ask yourself, what is limiting me right now? What am I believing about life in general that's so subtle and pervasive throughout my life that it's assumptuous by now? It's just assumed, such as gravity, such as people don't love me, even when it's not being triggered in the moment. It's helpful to have some of these sessions in your life. However, avoid becoming one of those shadow hunters too much, where you make it all about like working on yourself, because there is a balance to working on yourself and enjoying your life, working at yourself and enjoying your life, going within and going without, going within and going without. So whenever you just go throughout your everyday life and you follow your joy, you act on the breadcrumb trail of your excitement as much as you can. Oh, there's the next most exciting thing to do or think or feel or meditate on. Oh, hey, there's the next most exciting thing to do or feel or think about or meditate on or interact with. As you keep doing that and you keep expanding your life and your joy and your understanding of yourself in that organic, natural, Adam and Eve-like way of just naturally following your joy, and thinking your joy and becoming more of your joy, and therefore aligning yourself with love and light and unity, naturally, without even trying anything, but just naturally. This is the natural way, this is the childlike way, this is the easeful way, the effortless way. Then along that path you will authentically, naturally be challenged to look at the limiting beliefs that you cannot bring with you into the next breadcrumb. So you will at some point see a whole sandwich, right? You've had a few breadcrumbs and you get the taste of excitement, and then there's this whole fucking sandwich. Maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's the perfect relationship, maybe it's your realization of unity, maybe it's your realization of peace, whatever it might be. But it looks so almost too much out there for you that because of this organic process of following whatever is most exciting in each moment and honoring that to the best of your ability, while also honoring other people's free will to the best of your ability simultaneously, you will then arrive at these sort of jumps where something seems really, really, really exciting for you, but it seems kind of almost too much for you to handle. Now, this is because of the brightness of that next breadcrumb, the brightness of your being. As you think about that, it will show you the unconscious parts of yourself that you're still believing in that will not be able to support you in that reality, in experiencing that reality. So this is the natural way to investigating your limiting beliefs. The unnatural way, which sometimes can be the natural way, is to sit down and investigate, what am I believing? This can be helpful to an extent, but if this is taken to the extreme, we tend to lose touch with our natural childlike self, which just wants to play and have fun and enjoy life as it is and learn organically in that way through relationship with its world. So have a balance of both. But when you get severely triggered, or when you get consistently or perpetually triggered within the same area of thinking, now it's very helpful to go and sit your ass down and investigate, ask yourself, what am I believing about life or about myself or about my connection to creation or about my abilities or about who I am that makes me feel this way when this kind of scenario arises in my consciousness? I must have a belief, otherwise I would not feel anything about this, because this caterpillar over here doesn't feel anything about what that person just told me. I do. So I cannot blame that person because the caterpillar is not feeling the same experience. So it's not an objectively, externally true cause. I am the cause of my feelings. So what must I believe is true about what this person just told me that makes me feel the way I feel? And you just continue to apply this in your life whenever you get triggered. Now, people that are the most successful in their sort of rapid spiritual expansion and are able to hold the most amount of acceleration within this lifetime are people that take the most ownership the fastest and recognize that they are in control of what they believe, and that it's flexible. Their belief system is flexible. Those that make the least amount of progress or take the longest time to do so are the ones that are the most insistent and stubborn in the way they believe things about this world. And so they cannot distance themselves from the beliefs anymore. They can't see that the belief was optional to begin with. It was just a thought before it became a belief. But it was perpetually thought until it was seemed to be true. And then that person, or that idea of a person, started to believe in that thought form. And now it's become stubborn, it's become its reality, it's become its truth, it's become its belief system. So those that are humble and supple enough on a mental level to take themselves with a grain of salt and to understand that their perception is completely malleable and changeable and absolutely subjective and not at all absolutely true. Those are the people that can navigate their joy the quickest and accelerate their spiritual progression the quickest and the most effortlessly, because they're not being stubborn lower selves. They're actually in tune with higher self, communicating through feeling states and intuition and insight and imagination what it is that is truly of themselves and what it is that is not truly of themselves. And so they can become the truest expression of themselves while also being taken up higher in frequency and becoming more like the higher self that they are internally. Basically, the main point I wanted to get across, because this is all technique, this is like, how does this work? Just how do I see this? How do I get triggered? But the most important part of this is that you take ownership, that you take control of your life, that you master your life, basically. Not through control in the conventional sense, not through controlling circumstances, but through mastering your frequency, mastering your inner self. And in order to do that, you need to find joy in the act of bringing awareness to the question, what am I believing right now that makes me feel this way? What must I believe is true in order to feel this way about this? What am I believing right now that makes me feel held back? So investigate, because most of us feel held back on some level. Right now you feel held back at some level. How can you loosen that grip? How can you naturally take off within your spirit self more? By simply investigating what limiting beliefs you are having. So find joy in the act of bringing awareness to that level of yourself and no longer automatically projecting the causes of your feelings onto the external projection within your consciousness, which is still internal from a true point of view. So again, just to recap, because people tend to have a little bit of a difficulty with the practical application of this, and they ask me, how? Well, I basically told you how. There's not much more to it. At least this is how it works for me, but feel free to find your own permission slips. But for me, the way this works is, I have a contracted feeling, I feel held back, I feel not quite like myself, I feel not as blissful and joyful as I know myself to truly be, I feel not as connected and empowered and like, yeah, as I normally am. And when that happens, I start asking myself the question, what am I believing? On some level. So there's this subtle, unconscious level that is assuming things about things that I'm not consciously fully aware of, to the point where I can directly control it yet. In order for me to be able to control and shift this around and feel in alignment again within this type of a scenario or life or period of my life, I need to know what it is that I am believing. Now, this is the subtle process of investigation. And this is where it might take a little bit of time, it might take a little bit of meditation, it might take a little bit of silence of mind in order to be able to go deep enough, subtle enough to see like, hey, because at some point those beliefs are no longer even very obvious statements, although you can translate them as such and make them more pinpointed and pointed out and identified, which is very helpful. You can pin them on a board, so to speak, and write them down in a statement. I believe I am unworthy because mommy said da 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 da. That's how obvious you can make a really subtle belief. However, in the initial stages of processing or unveiling the belief itself, it just tends to feel like a pattern of energy, like a very subtle, assumptive pattern of energy. And so it requires some silence of self, some dedication, application, some awareness, some presence of consciousness to be able to ask yourself with enough clarity, what must I believe? What must I believe? Not even what am I believing. If we can't find a belief, ask yourself, what must I believe? You simply start to, not sure this is the right way of saying it, but you start to become deductive. You guys know? Deductive. Well, you start deducing, right? Like reasoning based on this must be true because of that. So if you cannot immediately find the belief as it is, ask yourself, okay, well, I feel contracted, I feel limited, but I can't quite put my finger on that belief, and therefore it continues to make me feel this way. I continue to not feel quite like myself. So what you do then is you start deducing what the belief must be approximately. This gets you closer into that nailing it point of view where you can then actually relieve yourself of it. So when it's an approximation, you ask yourself, what must I believe is true in order to feel this way? If someone tells me I'm not good enough, it's quite obvious. I must believe to some extent that it's possible for me to lack worthiness, to not be good enough. But if it gets even subtler than that, if it gets even more mixed in, or maybe it's part of a very complex situation where many people's opinions and many of your responsibilities are simultaneously called into question, it can get a little tough to notice exactly what's going on, and you might have to dissect that scenario in your own good time or step by step in pieces. And sometimes it's one underlying belief that is causing the whole of this complexity in your life to be attracted to you in this moment, to show you this belief so that you can transform it so that the next breadcrumb can be consumed and experienced because it's yours. So then ask yourself not so much like what is the belief, but what must I believe? Because I don't know yet what I believe. But I do know that I feel this way, and based on these circumstances and based on how I feel about these circumstances, I must believe something along these lines in order to feel this way. So that's the great starting point into making that belief more obvious to yourself. So then from that next level of clarity, you can ask yourself another sub-question, or you can ask yourself the same question again. Okay, so what must I believe is true in order for me to feel this way? Well, it has something to do with unworthiness or being unloved. Okay, let me look at that a little bit further. What specifically about that must I believe is true in order to feel specifically this way about what that person told me? So you simply take that investigation process subtler and subtler, deeper and deeper. You can do that based on deducing from your circumstances, based on reasoning and logic, clear higher mental logic, how I feel and what's occurring. I must believe something along these lines. And then just continue to make it more specific until you feel like, wait a second, I believe that I'm responsible for how this person feels because I care so much. As a spirit, I care, I want to be of service. However, me wanting to be of service does not mean the same thing as the human picked up upon belief that suggests that just because I care so much, I need to actually feel bad when they do and feel responsible for how they feel and try to fix it. Higher self is letting me know through this constantly contracted state when I'm interacting with other people, trying to make them feel better, that I don't have to do that. That I am permitted from the highest authority within myself, within this universe for myself, that I don't have to believe that anymore. I can just care and love without actually being too concerned with why and how they choose their own experience. And suddenly this limiting belief is now recognized, noticed, maybe even admitted defeat to, or in whatever tool works for you in that moment. But usually when you pinpoint the belief and make it conscious, you see it's not sensical anymore. And when you see it doesn't make sense, you automatically let go of it and you feel relieved. Now, if you don't feel relieved, even though you've pinpointed the belief, there is another belief that suggests that you cannot let go of this, otherwise you'd lose your humanity. Perhaps. This is one example. Or if you do this, you lose your true self, which cares about everything. Because I've met a lot of people that are sort of wanderers in nature, and they have such a deep, profound care for other beings, animals, nature, human beings. And so it's so hard for them to not care how someone else chooses to feel in any moment, because they, even if they have identified that belief and they know, yeah, I know I have to work on this, They don't, because they have another belief that is still unconscious. They've made conscious the belief that suggests that care means that they should be responsible for how other beings feel. They know that that's a belief. They know it's not true, but they have another belief that suggests if they let go of this belief, then they will lose their true wanderer's nature, their true spirit of being here and being of service. That, again, does not feel good, because higher self lets you know it's not true. It gives you permission to safely let go of the belief that you're responsible for how other people feel, and that won't mean that you lose your spirit. Instead, you'll actually gain more clarity on who you really are, and your spirit shines forth with even greater love and unconditional understanding. So now when you find that underlying belief that allows you to not let go, that does not allow you to let go of the belief that you've already pinpointed, now suddenly both beliefs go poof. And you feel relieved, and you understand, and you see clearly that spirit and loving and caring has never got anything to do with feeling responsible for how other people feel. So now you've sifted through this. Now you've extracted the truth, which is your true self, which loves and cares because it sees all parts as portions of itself, and the intention for this life was to be of service. That's your true care, that's your true spirit, and you've extracted the true self out of the conditioned or human-made beliefs of it means that you're responsible for how other people feel, and you need to fix the planet in some way. So now that you've separated the human beliefs from the true perspectives, you feel again aligned with who you are, you feel again empowered and free, and now you can actually start quote-unquote fixing the world and helping other people feel better, because you're no longer limiting yourself within this belief system that you have to or you should, when that's not the truth. So you can't move organically anymore. So sometimes there is a belief blocking you letting go of a belief you're already aware of. So if you're aware of a belief, it either goes poof and it transforms and you feel more blissful, you feel more connected to who you really are. If that does not happen when you do find the actual belief, then there's another belief that is afraid of letting go of that belief and has that believes that if you let go of that belief, you let go of a part of yourself, for example. Or it can be other things too, but there's another underlying belief that you have to still find or look at or investigate. So continuously become more subtler in your question, what must I believe is true right now to feel this way? How am I believing in this right now that makes me feel so contracted? Train this process, make it your own, make it everyday business. So, for example, the question, would you please talk about unworthiness? I have a very deep sense of unworthiness that holds back my progress in all areas of my life. I feel that I could be and do so much more if only I got rid once and for all of this strong belief. Thanks so much. With love, Charles. Thanks, Charles. Would you please talk about unworthiness? I have a very deep sense of unworthiness that holds back my progress in all areas of my life. So what must you believe is true? You don't have a deep sense of unworthiness. You have a deep sense of misalignment in response to your thought that you're unworthy. There's a difference. Nobody can actually feel unworthy. What you feel is the distance between your true self, the gap that you create, the distortion you create, the difference you create vibrationally between your true self's identity, which is infinite worthiness automatically, naturally, organically, because you exist, you are all that is and worthy of existing, otherwise you wouldn't, and the belief that suggests, oh, I might not be good enough, I might be unworthy, or maybe I actually am. The distance you feel between believing in that thought and not therefore being in alignment with the true frequency of who you are, that gap is what you feel so profoundly that you call the sense of unworthiness. But you cannot feel unworthy. You can only feel the difference. You can only feel bad in regards to the difference between who you truly are and who you think you are. So nobody's ever felt what it feels like to be unworthy because it doesn't exist. But you've felt what it feels like to think you're unworthy and believe in that thought, which creates a gap. And higher self is trying to pull you back. And the further away you believe in that belief, the worse you feel. And the more unworthy you feel, but it's really the more out of alignment with your true self you feel. So simply investigate the thought and stop believing in it. See that it's not true. Or admit defeat. See that it is true from its own point of view, but therefore you gain the expansion of your awareness to be able to see around that belief and see that, yeah, it might be true from its own limited point of view and its own form of reasoning, but from this way more expanded point of view of being part of existence and being born for pure reasons and having existed long before I was even born, and this just being one journey of many, I am completely worthy, obviously, duh. So yeah, whatever belief, you can win. It is true from your perspective that I'm unworthy, but I no longer see that as true, even though it's true from your point of view. So we can both be true. We can both win. You can win. Ego effect can win. My belief system can win just so that it can protect itself and feel good about itself. And I can win by no longer playing the game by its rules, by admitting defeat. So just investigate the thought a little further. What must you believe is true in order to feel such a gap between your true self and your belief in self that then affects every other area of your life? What is the belief that your higher self is telling you consistently through the deep sense of unworthiness that you've interpreted in that way is untrue? And then believe that it's untrue. Be flexible in your beliefs enough to let go of this belief of unworthiness. If it doesn't feel good, it's not true, so you can let go of it.